So for me, I believe that storytelling is one of the most important parts of photography. You know, being able to take one photo that says 1,000 words is what I believe makes photography so special and beautiful. So in today's video, I'll be sharing a few tips that I've learned throughout my photography journey that can help you tell better stories with your photos.
But somewhere going high, looking for a new side.
When I was starting out to take photography more seriously, I guess you could say, I would only ever focus on stuff like, is the composition perfect? Is the photo sharp enough? Or is the background blurry enough? But I wasn't really thinking about the bigger picture. Like, what story am I trying to tell with this photo? And don't get me wrong, not every photo has to tell a story. Sometimes you just want to take a photo of something just because it looks cool, or you want to try a new technique. And that's completely fine, like I do that too. But when you do want to tell a story, it does help to be intentional about it. Capturing emotion is so important when you want to tell a good story in your photo, because it's essentially what takes your photo from being just nice to look at to actually making the viewer feel something. And I believe the most powerful emotion comes from capturing those natural and unposed moments. Like, for example, think about someone smiling for the camera and the smile they have when they're genuinely laughing. Like, it's not the same. So don't overthink emotion too much when you're shooting. Just take the photo and let the moment speak for itself. The emotion doesn't have to be so obvious for it to be impactful. Let's quickly analyze this photo, for example, which I took just a few days ago actually. In this photo, there's not really a visible expression that the delivery writer is showing, but you can kind of still get a sense of the moment. When I initially saw this delivery writer, I was more focused on their body language rather than their facial expression, because emotion in photos doesn't necessarily have to come from the facial expression, but it can also be from surroundings or body language. You know, they're sitting back, relaxed, and I wanted to convey that feeling of exhaustion, or even just show a brief moment of peace in the middle of, you know, a busy day and a busy city. And although the scene is subtle, like not really much is going on, you can still find that emotional impact within the photo that's able to tell a meaningful story. But then, right after I shot this photo, I actually found an opportunity which allowed me to enhance the story of the scene. Exact same writer, basically the same composition, just with a shift in the background. And that brings me to tip number 2, which is shooting mid-action is one of the best ways to add movement and energy into your photos and make it feel a little more alive and dynamic. So continuing with what I was saying before, as I was shooting this delivery writer, from the corner of my eye, I noticed a tram coming into the background behind the writer. So I quickly decreased my shutter speed and I managed to get this shot. By showing the motion of the people moving in the foreground and the tram speeding past in the background, it really emphasized the story that I wanted to tell about the peace amidst the chaos of the busy city. And there's also this contrast between stillness and motion, which creates a deeper narrative and helps draw the viewer in more. But again, the action doesn't have to be, you know, something huge. It can literally be as simple as someone like putting their hand on their head or just taking a step or something. And you can see that in the foreground here of the people walking, which is like, it's really subtle, but adds quite a lot. But even subtle actions like that can help tell a more compelling story. And that brings me to tip number 3, which is paying attention to the details is what can really enhance your storytelling in your photos. I don't just mean the obvious things like lighting or composition. I'm talking more about, you know, those low-key sort of elements that might not stand out right away, or that might not even be consciously noticed at all. And now you're probably thinking,
bruh, Adeline,
if people aren't going to notice them, then what even is the point then? And you know, that's a great question. So let me explain. Let's look at another photo I shot. At first glance, it's a pretty simple photo. It's a shot of a man eating his food at a market stall. And yeah, that's essentially what it is. But if you look closer, you can see a few details that do add depth to the story, even if they're not the main focal point. And I'm either gonna make sense right now or just sound like I'm completely yapping, but please stick with me. I hope I word this all properly. So take, for example, the way he's holding his snack or bread. And you might think, you know, who cares? Like, why does it matter how he's holding his bread? But if you were to literally just let one hand drop, it would actually change the feel of the entire photo. Because the way he holds it with both hands suggests that he's fully engaged in the moment and taking his time. So it gives the shot a more relaxed and calm vibe. I never thought I'd be analyzing someone eating right now, but here we are. Anyways, this is just one example, and my point isn't to tell you to dissect how someone holds their food. It's to show that these supposedly minor and insignificant details do play an important role in storytelling. Also, don't be afraid to play around with angles or focal lengths when capturing these details. For example, with this same photo, if I wanted to zoom in a little more and maybe focus on just the lower half of his face as he takes a bite, that would also shift the story, and it redirects the viewer's focus and makes them feel more involved in the act of eating. So playing around with these things can help you create a more unique and interesting story, and you have the freedom. You can choose what you capture and what you don't. Have fun with it. With that said, I'm not saying you need to overanalyze every tiny detail before taking a shot, because I'm definitely not zooming in on every little hand movement or background element either. But being intentional about spotting those extra details is important. And even just being patient and taking a little more time to capture subtle changes, like maybe like someone's expression or wait for the light to hit a bit better. But these details can make a huge difference to the shot and the story you're telling with your photo. On to the next tip. Actively search for opportunities to enhance your story by exploring different angles, like close-up shots, medium shots, long shots, low angles, high angles, etc. You get the point. By using a variety of angles, you have that flexibility and you get to choose which elements to include and also emphasize specific aspects of your composition. For example, I have these two shots of a group of women dancing. In this first shot, I captured a close-up of the dancers, showing their expressions and movements. Well, one of them at least. So since it's a close-up shot, it creates this more intimate feel, but it doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. In this second shot, I switched to a wide low angle from behind the dancers, and it includes the audience in the frame. And this not only adds context to the photo, but also tells a broader story about the interaction between the dancers and the audience. So while you're photographing a scene, always aim to get a variety of shots from different angles. And this way you can tell a more unique and captivating story. And you can also combine these photos to create a series of shots to enhance your story and give it more context. Also, here's a slightly controversial tip, but don't be afraid to break the rules. Traditional photography rules like, rule of thirds or ensuring you have symmetry in your photos can be helpful, but don't let it limit your creativity and how you want to tell the story. Experimenting with angles or perspectives that are unconventional, or even playing around with the settings and not using the, correct settings can sometimes lead to more meaningful stories. So if breaking those traditional rules helps you achieve your desired intention in telling a story, then go for it. At the end of the day, it's your photo. You can do whatever you want. And now on to the last tip, which is... Last but not least, of course, we have post-processing. Editing is a crucial part of telling a story in your photos because it's where you can establish the emotion or story behind your photos. And if you want to tell a good story in your photos, it's not just about making the shot look good, but it's also about reinforcing the mood in the story. So when you want to tell a story with your photos, first think about what you're trying to convey in the photo and what story you're trying to tell when you edit. For example, if you want the photo to feel nostalgic, then you might lower the saturation. Or on the other hand, if you want the photo to feel more lively and happy, then you might boost the vibrance, warmth, and saturation. But with that said, while editing is important, be careful not to overdo it to the point where the photo just loses its authenticity. Essentially, authenticity is what connects your audience to your photo. And if the photo feels or looks overly edited and manipulated, then it can make it harder for your audience to connect and relate with the emotions and story you're presenting. So instead, focus on enhancing the natural qualities of your image while still staying true to its original feel. And this way, your audience can connect more deeply to the story you're telling and the emotions you're trying to convey, because after all, storytelling is meant to be authentic and relatable. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and it helped you out, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!